911, what's your emergency, please?
He's my wife's grandson.
Your wife's
Person who could
grandson?
potentially be frozen from liquid nitrogen. We run nitrogen freezers
Okay,
here.
is he alive? Is he breathing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Okay, where did you shoot him at?
No, I'm here in the
I shot him in the chest.
You shot him in the chest?
Yes.
Okay. Did you shoot him with a shotgun or a pistol? Okay. What's your name? Okay.
Ruth Mildred Starr was born in Pueblo, Colorado on December 7th, 1913, to Thomas Starr and Joanna Egler. Raised in a modest household, Ruth grew up during a time of significant change in the United States. Pueblo, known for its steel production, provided a unique backdrop for Ruth's childhood. She attended Central High School in Pueblo, where she was known for her dedication to her studies and her vibrant personality. After completing her education, Ruth married William Walter Price. The couple remained in Pueblo, Colorado, where they were still listed as residents in 1935. Their marriage marked the beginning of a new chapter in Ruth's life, one filled with the promise of stability and partnership. Together, they navigated the challenges of the Great Depression, finding ways to support each other over the difficult times. As Ruth aged, her life seemed to follow a quiet, unremarkable path. However, her name would later become associated with one of the most chilling 911 calls ever recorded.
This is Ruth Price of 3877.
What's the problem, ma'am?
Oh, well, there's some guy been checking the place out.
How?
Well, he went in the back. I have an apartment in the back, and he said he was looking for a guy. And he comes to my door, and
Yes.
and said he's looking for an apartment. So I live alone, and I'm an old lady. And I'm kind of
Where is he now, ma'am?
I don't have no idea.
The Ruth Price 911 call, often circulated on the internet and used in training materials for emergency dispatchers, begins with a woman, presumably Ruth Price, calling 911 to report a suspicious man lurking around her property. The call takes a terrifying turn as the intruder seemingly breaks in and attacks Ruth, with her final blood-curdling screams caught on tape. With her address unknown, help was unable to arrive in time. Or so the story circulating the web went. This story is actually an example of how details can become muddled and hyperbolic through retelling. Ruth Price survived whatever ordeal was caught on the call, and there is no conclusive evidence that she was harmed at all. As you can hear on the call, there's no noise of a break-in, nor the sound of another person's voice or presence in the home. In fact, it doesn't sound like Ruth ever moves away from the phone to hide or run away or be subdued and attacked by the apparent burglar. The 911 call was used as a potential scenario for 911 operator trainees, likely as an attempt to show what a failed rescue sounds like. Despite this, it was still a harrowing event for Ruth to witness someone attempt to break into her home or even watch someone as they snuck around the outside of her house. This mysterious and horrifying call is just one example of dark or disturbing audio caught on distress calls or tapes from people around the world since we gained the ability to record audio, be it intentional or unintentional. There's something about the lack of a visual that makes disturbing audio even more terrifying. It forces our minds to fill in the blanks, to visualize the horror we are hearing, and thus it never leaves our thoughts, since we ourselves are the painter of the visuals in our own minds. Since the advent of the internet, we've been able to archive these disturbing pieces of media to live on in perpetuity for all to hear, for better or for worse. On this entry of the Darkhives, we will be focusing on dark, disturbing audio that has circulated the web for decades. Welcome to the internet's darkest audio. On New Year's Eve, 1980, a young university student named Karen Potak was leaving a party when she was brutally attacked with a tire iron by an unknown assailant, resulting in multiple brain injuries. Miraculously, Potak survived the attack, but the more shocking detail is that the assailant called the police himself, providing the location where Karen could be found and fervently apologizing for his actions during the call. This assailant is known in the annals of true crime history as the weepy-voiced killer, a man named Paul Michael Stefani. Paul Michael Stefani was born in Austin, Minnesota on September 8, 1944. Into a Catholic family as the second of 10 siblings, Stefani grew up and eventually married Beverly Leiter and fathered a daughter with her, but the couple divorced soon. He held various jobs, including a janitor position at Malberg Manufacturing Company, from which he was fired in 1977. Despite appearing ordinary to those around him, Stefani harbored a dark side that would later manifest in a series of violent crimes. He claimed these crimes were motivated by a dark voice in his head, commanding him to kill, a voice that he couldn't shut out or disobey. His first known victim was Karen Potak. After attacking her, Stefani called the police at 3 a.m. to report the attack. In the eerie phone call to the police, he was sobbing uncontrollably and pleading for them to send help. Listen.
Yes, please, this is an emergency. Please send a squad to Pierce Butler Road, Malberg Manufacturing Company, machine shop. Please, there's an ambulance too. There's a girl hurt there.
Can you tell me what happened to her?
Just hurry, she's laying on the ground in the back by the railroad tracks, by the edge here. Hurry.
What's the address?
I don't know.
Who are you?
The call, in which Stefani left detailed instructions, ironically helped save Karen's life, as emergency responders rushed to her location and then rushed her to the hospital, where she underwent multiple surgeries and was placed in intensive care. Stefani, though seemingly remorseful for his actions, was nowhere done with his rampage. A pattern would emerge. All victims of Stefani were women and were also wearing red. WCCO reporter Caroline Lowe would be the one to air the eerie audio for the public to assist with the search of the attacker, but no leads were generated and Stefani was free to kill again. On June 3, 1981, Kimberly Compton arrived in St. Paul by bus, seeking a new life and excited about her new adventure and her plans to find a job and settle into her new environment. After getting off the bus, she decided to get something to eat. She walked to the Mickey's Diner, a popular 24-hour eatery in downtown St. Paul. After leaving the diner, Kimberly encountered a man who offered to show her around the city. Unaware of the danger that lay ahead, she accepted his offer. This man was Paul Michael Stefani. Later that evening, Stefani took Kimberly to an isolated area near a construction site on Pierce Butler Route in St. Paul. There he brutally attacked her, stabbing her multiple times with an ice pick. Kimberly fought for her life, but the attack was relentless and vicious, and she unfortunately perished. After the attack, Stefani once again contacted the police to report the crime. Listen with caution.
Oh, you find me? I just stabbed somebody with an ice pick. I can't stop myself. I keep killing somebody.
Before moving on to his next victim, he phoned the police to apologize for the murder, offering to turn himself in, but he never did. Stefani later contacted local media to apologize a second time.
Don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry what I did to Compton. I couldn't help it. Don't know why I had to stab her. I am so upset about it. I keep getting drunk every day. I can't believe it's just a big dream. I can't think of being locked up. If I get locked up, I'll kill myself. I'd rather kill myself than get locked up. I'll try not to kill anybody else.
The Weepy Voice killer's next known victim was 33-year-old Kathleen Greening, who was found drowned in her bathtub in Roseville, Minnesota on July 21st, 1982. Unlike the previous cases, the killer did not make an immediate phone call to confess. It wasn't until much later that this murder was linked to the same perpetrator. After Greening, his next victim was Barbara Simons, a 40-year-old nurse living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. On the evening of August 5th, 1982, Simons decided to spend the night out at a local bar called the Hexagon Bar in Minneapolis. Barbara spent some time talking with Stefani at this bar. Witnesses later reported that the two appeared to be getting along well and left the bar together. After leaving the bar, Stefani drove Barbara to an isolated area near the Mississippi River. There, in the cover of darkness, he brutally attacked her. Using a knife, he stabbed her multiple times in a frenzied and violent assault. Following the murder, as had become his grim ritual, Stefani made a phone call to the police. Again, listen with caution.
Fire emergency.
Please don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry I killed that girl. I stabbed her 40 times. Kimberly Compton was the first one over at St. Paul. I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm sick. I'm going to kill myself, I think.
Where are you?
I'm just going to... If somebody dies with a hook shit on, it's me. I killed both of you. I'm sorry. I'll never make it to heaven.
Calm down.
This would be the last call Stefani would make to the authorities, but not his final attack. On August 21st, 1982, 19-year-old Denise Williams was attacked while walking home. She managed to survive the assault and provided a description of her attacker, which matched the man last seen with Barbara Simons. This description eventually led to the arrest of Paul Michael Stefani. Stefani would eventually be tried and arrested, and in 1998, he died of natural causes, but not before admitting to other crimes, including another unsolved murder and the murder of Kathleen Greening. The Weepy Voice killer's behavior was highly unusual in the annals of serial crime. His tearful phone calls, filled with remorse and pleas for help, stood in stark contrast to the cold-blooded nature of his murders. Criminal psychologists and investigators have speculated about his mental state, suggesting that he may have suffered from a profound psychological disorder. The dichotomy between his violent actions and apparent guilt suggests a deeply conflicted individual. Paul Michael Stefani's calls to 911 are are some of the most haunting and intense recordings available on the internet. These recordings have become a macabre artifact of criminal history, serving as a stark reminder of the darkness that can reside within the human psyche. At the beginning of the episode, we discussed the infamous 911 call made by Ruth Price. As stated before, this call was sensationalized to emphasize the importance of prompt and effective responses for 911 operator training, highlighting the severe consequences of delayed decision-making and poor communication with those in distress. However, a more poignant example of 911's failure is the tragic case of Kyle Plush, a teenage boy whose death starkly underscored the critical shortcomings of emergency services and left a lasting negative mark on the system. Kyle Plush was a vibrant and beloved 16-year-old from Cincinnati, Ohio. Born on October 18, 2001 to parents Ron and Jill Plush, Kyle had a wide array of interests and talents. He was an avid tennis player, enjoying both the physical challenge and the camaraderie of the sport. He also participated in other athletic activities, including skiing and soccer, showcasing his versatility and enthusiasm for staying active. On April 10, 2018, 16-year-old Kyle Plush found himself in a desperate and life-threatening situation. That afternoon, he drove his family's 2004 Honda Odyssey minivan to Seven Hills School, where he was a sophomore. He had a tennis match scheduled and needed to retrieve his equipment from the rear of the vehicle. While reaching into the back of the minivan to get his tennis gear, the third row seat unexpectedly flipped and trapped him. The seat pinned Kyle in such a way that he was unable to free himself, leaving him in a position where he could barely move or breathe. Recognizing the severity of his predicament, Kyle used his iPhone's voice-activated Siri function to call 911. At 3:16 p.m., Kyle made his first emergency call. He calmly explained that he was trapped inside his van in the parking lot of Seven Hills School. Despite his clear distress and detailed description of his location, the dispatcher failed to prioritize the call adequately. Information provided by Kyle was not fully relayed to the responding officers, leading to a critical delay in the search for him. Listen.
Hello, Cincinnati 911. What is the address of your emergency? Cincinnati 911.
I'm stuck in my bed outside the Seven Hills parking lot.
The Seven Hills what parking lot?
Hello, I need help.
Where are you? Hello?
I'm gonna die here.
Where are you?
Officers were dispatched to the school but did not leave their patrol cars to conduct a thorough search of the area. They drove around the parking lot but did not get out physically to inspect the vehicles. Consequently, they did not locate Kyle or his minivan, missing a vital opportunity to rescue him. At 3:35 p.m., Kyle managed to make a second call to 911. This time, his voice was filled with desperation and fear. Listen with caution, as the call is distressing.
Probably don't have much time left to tell my mom that I love her if I die. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. I'm trapped inside my gold Honda Odyssey van in the Southwood parking lot of Seven Hills Beth. Send officers immediately. I'm almost dead.
As you can tell, this call was cut short, possibly due to the call duration limit on the iPhone, which might have been set to conserve battery life. The dispatcher handling this call also failed to accurately relay the urgency and location details to the officers. Despite Kyle's precise descriptions, the communication breakdown between the dispatchers and the responding officers persisted. Officers again did not conduct a thorough physical search of the parking lot and the surrounding area, relying instead on visual checks from their patrol cars. Kyle's father, Ron Plush, became concerned when Kyle did not return home and eventually went to the school to search for him. At around 8 p.m., he found the van with Kyle inside, unresponsive and trapped under the third row seat. Ron immediately called 911, but by the time the emergency responders arrived, it was too late. Kyle had succumbed to positional asphyxia due to being trapped under the seat for several hours. The death of Kyle Plush led to an outpouring of grief and anger from the community. An investigation into the incident revealed multiple failures in the emergency response system. It was clear that the initial dispatcher did not recognize the urgency of Kyle's call and failed to communicate crucial information to officers. The tragic death of Kyle Plush sparked calls for significant reforms in the emergency response system. The Cincinnati Police Department and emergency services undertook several measures to address the identified failures, and thankfully, reforms were made across the board to make the entire system more efficient. The Kyle Plush 911 call is one of the most distressing and heart-wrenching pieces of audio available on the internet. Listening to it reveals the unimaginable fear and desperation of a young man trapped and struggling for his life. The raw emotion in Kyle's voice as he pleads for help makes this one of the most incredibly dark and haunting recordings of audio that exist on the internet. In 1978, the quiet town of Aschaffenburg, Germany, became the focal point of an international sensation, as Joseph and Anna Mitchell, along with two priests, Father Arnold Renz and Father Ernst Alt, stood trial for negligent homicide. The case in question revolved around the tragic death of Annalise Mitchell, Joseph and Anna's daughter, whose suffering and demise had ignited a heated debate about the boundaries of faith, mental health, and medical responsibility. This trial not only scrutinized the actions of the defendants, but also delved into the murky waters where religious belief and modern science collide, raising profound questions that resonated far beyond the courtroom. You see, the central issue in the trial revolved around the defense's assertion that Annalise Mitchell was possessed by demons, and her death was the result of a malevolent force ravaging her body rather than any negligence on the part of her parents or the priests. A key piece of evidence presented during the trial was a series of recorded tapes documenting the exorcism sessions conducted by Fathers Renz and Alt in their desperate attempt to free Annalise from the demon's grasp. These recordings, now infamous for their disturbing content, have sparked widespread debate and continue to haunt listeners, raising profound questions about the nature of exorcism and possession. The tapes force us to confront the focal question surrounding this event and this trial. The question being, is the devil real? Annalise Mitchell grew up in a devout Roman Catholic family. Her parents, Joseph and Anna, raised her and her three sisters in a household where faith played a central role. The Mitchell family was deeply religious, attending Mass twice a week and adhering to stringent practices of their faith. Annalise's early life was marked by her dedication to her religious beliefs. However, her world changed dramatically at the age of 16. During that year, she experienced a severe convulsion, a traumatic event that led her to being diagnosed with a temporal lobe epilepsy. This condition, characterized by intense seizures and various neurological symptoms, marked the beginning of Annalise's long and painful journey through illness and suffering. Despite her health challenges, Annalise was determined to pursue her education. In 1973, she enrolled at the University of Würzburg, aiming to build a future for herself despite the shadows cast by her condition. However, her time at the university was far from ordinary. Her classmates described her as withdrawn and very religious, indicating that her struggles had a profound impact on her social interactions and overall demeanor. As her condition worsened, Annalise began to experience severe depression and hallucinations. She reported hearing voices damning her to hell and seeing demonic faces. These symptoms deeply disturbed her and her family, who, despite seeking medical help, saw no improvement in her condition. Instead, her symptoms intensified, leading to a profound aversion to religious objects and an increasing belief that she was possessed by demons. In June 1970, Mitchell had a third seizure at the psychiatric hospital where she had been staying. She was prescribed anticonvulsion drugs for the first time, including Dilantin, which did not alleviate the problem. That same month, she was prescribed Aolept, which is similar to chlorpromazine and is used in the treatment of various psychoses, including schizophrenia, disturbed behavior, and delusions. By 1973, she began experiencing severe depression, hallucinating while praying, and complained about hearing voices telling her that she was damned and would rot in hell. Mitchell's treatment in a psychiatric hospital did not improve her health, and her depression just worsened. Long-term treatment also did not help, and she grew increasingly frustrated with her medical care after having taken pharmacological drugs for over 5 years now. Mitchell became intolerant of Christian sacred places and objects such as the crucifix and church. Mitchell visited San Damiano with a family friend who regularly organized Christian pilgrimages. Her escort concluded that she was suffering from demonic possession because she was unable to walk past a crucifix and refused to drink the water of a Christian holy spring. Annalise Mitchell's mother claimed to have seen stigmata on her daughter, and Annalise herself believed she could communicate with Mary, the mother of Jesus. Convinced that Annalise was possessed, her family and community sought the help of several priests for an exorcism. The priests, however, recommended continued medical treatment and informed the family that exorcisms required the bishop's permission, which is only granted when the subject meets specific criteria indicative of possession, such as an intense dislike for religious objects and supernatural powers. As Annalise's condition worsened and worsened and worsened, she exhibited alarming behaviors, including aggression, self-harm, drinking her own urine, and eating insects. After much persistence, the Bishop of Würzburg granted permission for an exorcism in 1975, following the 1614 Rituale Romanum, the Church's traditional guidelines for exorcism, also known as the Roman Rite. Fathers Arnold Renz and Ernst Alt were assigned to perform the exorcism rites. Over 10 months, they conducted 67 grueling sessions in an attempt to rid Annalise of the supposed demonic forces. These sessions were intense and harrowing, pushing Annalise to the brink of physical and mental exhaustion. Throughout the process, her health declined alarmingly. She exhibited extreme weight loss, dehydration, and other severe physical symptoms, but she and her family remained steadfast in their belief that she was battling demonic possession. The exorcism sessions were meticulously recorded, capturing the torment Annalise endured and the priest's fervent efforts to save her. The sessions, recorded on tape, have since become infamous, offering a deeply unsettling glimpse into the intense and controversial practice of exorcism. The following are a few excerpts from the tape that I have selected for you to hear. Due to the length of the tapes, I have chosen some of the most harrowing segments, but please be advised that this audio is extremely disturbing and may be upsetting to listeners. Proceed with caution.
Die müssen als Priester erkennbar sein. Und zweimal, kapiert? Heiraten dürfen sie auch nicht. Im Auftrag von der. Ja! Und es muss gebet werden. Warum? In den Kirchen. Und in den Familien. Wann sind die Scheiße? Ja! Soll da schon nichts mehr, oder der Gift aufnehmen. Vergiss du der Sache wieder. Nein! Ich bin Nero. Ich bin der Dritte im Bunde.
Noch mehr.
Sie müssen mit in eine Scheißkassette. Und zwar mit allen zu dem Scheiß gelogen Witzbusch gehen.
Und dann?
Und dann? Dann muss er den Dreck bekannt geben. Wie? Was er soll er schneiden?
Vierten Wort.
Des
Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen.
Die holländischen Bischöfe sind Ketzer. Heretiker. So? Nicht lang sie bald.
Nein, noch nicht.
Sieht
Alles
das aus wie Verfluchte.
Alles da. Im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria
Wir sind Papst und Freudig. Keine Dauer.
befehle ich dir, unreiner Geist, alles zu sagen und sagen, im Namen Jesu und im Namen Maria. Im Namen der Dreifaltigkeit, im Namen des Vaters, des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes.
To many, these tapes are considered irrefutable proof of demonic possession and the existence of the devil himself. Segments of the recording feature Annalise speaking in languages she had never learned and using a dual-toned, inhuman voice. These elements are often cited as definitive evidence that she was indeed possessed. During this time, her parents stopped consulting doctors at her request and relied solely on the exorcism rites. A total of 67 exorcism sessions, 1 or 2 a week, lasting up to 4 hours each, were performed over approximately 10 months in 1975 and 1976. Towards the end of her life, Mitchell began to refuse food. On July 1st, 1976, Annalise died in her home. The autopsy report stated that the cause of death was malnutrition and dehydration, resulting from almost a year in a state of starvation while the rites of exorcism were performed. At her death, she weighed only 66 pounds, suffered broken knees from continuous genuflections, was unable to move without the assistance of her family, and was reported to have contracted pneumonia. After an investigation, the state prosecutor maintained that Mitchell's death could have been prevented as late as 1 week before she died. The prosecution argued that Annalise's death was the result of neglect. They contended that she had been suffering from a combination of physical and mental illnesses that were exacerbated by the prolonged and intense exorcism sessions. Medical experts testified that her symptoms were consistent with epilepsy and psychosis, but the defense maintained that Annalise was possessed and that the exorcisms were performed to save her from demonic influence. They argued that she had the right to refuse medical treatment and that her parents and the priests acted out of a deep sense of religious duty and compassion. Testimonies from witnesses and those involved in the exorcisms recounted Annalise's alleged supernatural experiences and her aversion to religious symbols. Despite this, the court found the defendants guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence. However, the sentences were relatively lenient given the circumstances. The priest received a suspended 6-month prison sentence and 3 years of probation. Annalise's parents were exempt from any punishment as they had already suffered enough from the loss of their daughter. The Annalise Mitchell case remains one of the most controversial and discussed cases involving exorcism. It raised critical questions about the intersection of faith, mental health, and the law. The trial underscored the need for better understanding and treatment of mental illness and highlighted the potential dangers of religious practices when they interfere with medical care. Annalise Mitchell's story has inspired numerous books, documentaries, and films, including the 2005 movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Her grave in Klingenberg am Main has become a pilgrimage site for those who believe in her possession and martyrdom. Listening to the Annalise Mitchell tapes can be a profoundly unsettling experience. The raw emotion, desperation, and apparent suffering conveyed in these recordings are powerful and evocative, leaving a lasting impression on the listener. The recordings have become infamous as purported evidence of demonic possession and are, without a doubt, some of the most disturbing dark audio out there. These disturbing audio recordings provide chilling insights into the darkest aspects of the human experience. The weepy-voiced killer's remorseful 911 calls reveal the stark contrast between a murderer's emotional regret and his brutal actions, while Kyle Plush's tragic, unanswered cries for help highlight the severe consequences of emergency service failures. And the Annalise Mitchell tapes, with their unsettling blend of guttural voices and unlearned languages, blur the lines between mental illness and demonic possession. Together, these recordings compel us to confront the profound and often unsettling realities of our world. Thanks for being here once more to dive into the Darkhives. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will explore even more unsettling and sinister things that lurk around the internet. See you then. Goodbye.